Welcome to Inside Design with Kandrak and Cole, hosted by two nationally published Atlanta interior designers, Joanne Kandrak and Kelly Cole. These energetic women are also world travelers, charity givers, and bloggers with a wealth of information to share and stories to tell about the interior design world. Okay, now just a warning, this is going to be fun and not too serious. After all, they still do have an interior design business running at full speed.
Hey everybody, this is Inside Design with Kandrak and Cole, and today we are recording episode 67, a very, very exciting guest. And our topic today is everything you need to know about branding with our guest, Phil Pallen. This podcast is actually sponsored by Helser Brothers Hardware.
So Helser Brothers, we've been talking about them for the last couple shows. They are a fully custom manufacturer of drapery hardware, and it's run by two brothers, Jay and Mark. Jay is the drapery installer side of the party, and he designs all the new products that are installer friendly and engineered for strength. And then Mark on the other side is the metal worker guy who's the engineer, and the two of them are building beautiful products. So they've been in business for over 24 years. They have an incredible customer service team, and they can customize anything you want. Everything over $100 ships free. So check them out, helserbrothers.com. You can find them all over Facebook, Instagram, and social media. They are our go-to, and we want to make sure everybody loves them like we do.
Yay, Helser Brothers. Okay, so we are really, really excited to have Phil on the show with us. Phil is a social media expert, I would say. He's a keynote speaker, as well as you'll see, a very smart, funny, well-traveled guy who I call the guru of branding. We met Phil, and we've talked about him before because we met
talked about him many times.
Yes, because we met him 3 years ago at the Design Mastermind in Vegas with Kelly Ellis. And his mantra, and I love it, is a personal brand isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. And he believes that you need to use social media to promote your brand. We engaged in a brand audit with Phil, and that is the reason that we even have a podcast. So if you go back to our very first podcast, episode number 1, you will hear all about how that happened. So welcome, Phil.
Hi, Phil.
Hello, you two. I was just about to say, you guys sound so good. This is so legit.
Yes.
Whose idea was this podcast? Whoever that was, they're smart.
Yeah, they really are.
Yeah, sound is everything.
But we're not going to talk
I'm sorry, was that me?
We're not talking about us today because we want to talk about you, and we want to let everyone out there know about all that you know, all that you do, and how cool you are. So I'm going to ask you.
Sweet.
Well, it's so true.
We do love you.
We're going to ask you just 3 questions to start out. Where did you grow up?
Right.
Where did you go to school? And what made you decide to choose branding?
Okay.
Oh, that's like a lightning round.
Yeah, that's lightning round. So where did I grow up? I grew up in a small town called Belleville, Ontario in Canada. So I'm fully Canadian. I went to school. I did my undergrad in Canada at a school called Western University. I studied media. And then I did my master's in entertainment business in Florida, a school called Full Sail University. And then I moved out to LA, and then that was where it started. It's a very long story short. I'm going to keep it especially short today because we're going to get to the good stuff. But long story short, I was in the running to become Charlie Sheen's social media intern at the peak of his craziness in the media, Tiger Blood, #TigerBlood. And so if you look up Phil Pallen, Charlie Sheen, you can read the whole story. Google me, baby. And then
I never knew that.
I never knew that either, Phil.
Yes.
Oh, God, that was a crazy.
You guys didn't know that? I thought I was tell that story.
That was
No.
a big spurt of craziness for Charlie Sheen. Goodness gracious.
Well, so fine. I'll give you the medium-sized story because it is kind of interesting. That's actually how my career started. I was 3 months before graduation. I didn't know, was I moving to New York to do an internship with NBC? Was I moving to LA? And Lauren, now business partner, you know Lauren, she sent me a link. She said, Charlie, I know you need a job. She was doing an internship in New York at the time. We're both 21. She says, Charlie Sheen is looking for a social media intern. How hilarious would this be? I said, great. What do I have to do to submit? She said, all you have to do is write a tweet. So I was like, perfect. No cover letter, no resume. Literally just submit a tweet. Very long story short. 90,000 people from around the world entered this competition, and I made it to the top 50. So while this was happening, I am grateful to be Canadian. Canadians get really excited when other Canadians are successful in media or in sports. And so what happened was there were 14 other Canadians that were also in the running to become his intern. I think, round 2 or 3, there was about 1,000 people. And when the Canadian press called me and did a full interview with me, because I was producing videos, I was like, what can I do to make this exciting, not just for myself, but for everyone? So I had these fun little videos, like I would blink and then my eyes would turn to tiger stripes. And I was on the news. I did over 100 TV, radio, and print interviews about this quest to become Charlie Sheen's intern.
Oh my
And
God.
when the Canadian press asked me, Phil, are there any other Canadians in the running that you know of? I said, absolutely not. It's just me. Yeah, which was a lie. But I learned.
God.
I learned in 4 months what it took to stand out from the crowd. I was effectively my own first client. And so attending Full Sail University, I was just back there last week in Orlando. The school was really behind me to help me get this opportunity. And one of the professors goes, Phil, you're moving out to LA. I might have another lead for you. My dream was to host a TV show. It was my first job in Canada when I was 14. I did a little show about school. That's a whole other story. Bad hair. It's just, let's not even go there. And the teacher
So much
goes,
to know. Jeez.
there's so much to know. I know you guys didn't know about this.
Yeah.
The teacher goes, Phil, I've been childhood friends with the CEO of Ryan Seacrest Productions. Would you be interested in an introduction? And I was like, yes. Screw Charlie Sheen. I want to go work for Ryan
I was going to
Seacrest.
say, way better than
Yes.
Tiger Crazy Man.
So they created the first digital media internship for me with Ryan Seacrest Productions. 1 week before I was set to move out to LA, right? And he was working on the Kardashians at this time. This was launching. There were so many cool things happening. And 1 week before I was set to move out, I announced on social media, I said, I'm moving out to LA in 1 week and I'm interning for Ryan Seacrest. That's all I said. On the front page of the Toronto Star the next day, entertainment section, it said, sorry, Sheen, hello, Seacrest. My big face and a huge article all about it.
yeah.
And I did another,
Wow.
it was my 4th wave of press. So I was stepping out of class in my final thesis to do radio interviews because people had been following my journey. They were fascinated with this. And then I got a call from the VP at Ryan Seacrest. His name was Tony. He said, Phil, are you sitting down? I'm like, no. Yesterday's my last day of class. I'm at Universal Studios. I'm celebrating. He said, well, I have some bad news.
Oh,
We've had $1
geez.
million advertisers threaten to drop because you've created such a stir. No one over here even knows who you are. You haven't even started working for us. We have hundreds of Google alerts connecting our brand, Ryan's brand, squeaky clean family brand, with Charlie Sheen's brand of cocaine and strippers. Phil, what have you done? Ryan isn't happy. That's the story.
No.
So yes, I have to tell you the story because it does fit with what we're talking about. So before, and then he said, don't talk about it. So not only am I firing you before you even start, he said, don't mention his name ever again. And that was the start of my career. I moved out to LA, no job, no internship, no friends, no family. And I had 1 year to figure out how do I stay in the U.S. because I was an international student, right? So I have a year on top of my student visa to figure it out, find someone that can sponsor me. It's not really designed for entrepreneurs. Normally you have to go give your soul away to someone else. And no one even wanted my soul. So I moved out to LA. I thought, how am I going to pay my rent? How am I going to pay my rent next month? And I thought, you know what? Who's helping the small people? Designers, jewelry designers, like small businesses, people
creatives.
like the creatives. I know there's branding agencies, but they put you on retainer for 20, 30 grand a month for these big clients. I want to help people make websites. I want to help design logos. So that's how it started. I literally just networked my way through LA in the first month. I met a handful of TV hosts, which, as you know, was my thing. I kind of found that community and started to build my reputation right away in that niche. And then from there, grew. And that's how it all started.
That is
Wow.
the most amazing story of branding pros and cons that I've ever heard, because obviously you were incredibly successful. The end result was not what you wanted, clearly, but I mean,
You knew how to create buzz.
that you created
Right.
such a buzz that Ryan Seacrest would be like, oh God, They're such a buzz that no.
Right.
Wow.
It was a double-edged
Charlie Sheen owed
sword.
you up an
so
apology.
It was the best and worst thing. Yeah, it was the best. And you know what's funny is the internship didn't even actually happen. They did select someone, but he had so much going on at that time that it was like the least of his worries. Internships.com paid him $100,000 and he said, yeah, sure. And no one even actually got the internship. So it all worked out. And I can tell the story. And it's fun. People love that story. I tell it from the stage. I can't believe you guys haven't heard it. I'm so glad I got to share
I really
it.
can't believe I heard it.
Of all the times we've been together, we've chatted.
So speaking of this,
now you know.
You now have speaking. I mean, you're a speaker now. So tell us about like your speaking engagements. You know, what do you talk about? What's the deal?
Okay, I'm really excited to answer this question because we have a little personal connection. I started speaking in 2014. You know, in high school I did it because I loved it. I found it terrifying, but I loved the adrenaline rush, you know. And I didn't do my first professional talk until 2014 when a little woman that we know and love named Kelly Ellis, she and I did a webinar together for a company that doesn't exist anymore called Demand Media. And she was like, I like you. And I was like, I like you. And she said, I'm doing an event called Design Camp in a few months in Seattle, and I want you to come and speak. And I was like, about what? I don't know how this works. Like, what do you mean come and speak? She said, talk, you know, social media, branding, tell the story. Like, and that was my first talk, Kelly Ellis, which is how we met. Yeah. And she's just someone I love and admire and speak to weekly. Now she's out in Barcelona. I freaking love her.
I freaking love her too.
That was how it started. So Kelly gave me my first speaking engagement in 2014. I couldn't believe it. I went there. I spoke. I met some of my favorite people, which are interior designers. Probably we've worked with more interior designers than any other industry or profession, right? If I had to pick one industry that I've probably worked in the most, it's that. And that was really, honestly, kind of how it started. And then I realized, wow, I can travel. I love to travel. I can do it for work, which means I can write everything off. And that was how it started. So kind of, I got the travel bug and I started to speak around the world and get clients that way.
Around the world.
Around the world.
It started in the US, but now, I mean, even this year, I've done intentionally less speaking than in years previous, because in years previous, I was a yes man. What Kelly started about a year and a half following that, I said yes to every opportunity, even if I didn't get paid, sometimes even if they didn't cover expenses. But I said yes to everything because I thought, let me try this out for 1 year, 1.5 years. I'm going to put myself out there, say yes to every opportunity. And once I've proven myself, then I will speak for money. And that's what happened. After that year, to show proof of concept, I could then go to a conference and say I've spoken, in 30 whatever places, 10 different countries, and here's what I speak on. I kind of needed to go through that exercise myself to prove it to myself and to prove it to others. So that's, and you guys know too, it's like when you get on stage and someone listens to you for half an hour or an hour, there is no better sale. If you do a good job of that presentation, an audience staring at you, captive audience, paying attention, trusts you, there's no better. Compare that to a cold call. It's night and day.
Yeah, I mean, we were just speaking at the Designer Experience in Atlanta at the W Hotel this week, and it was amazing. Like I told Joanne when we finished, I said, when I looked out into the crowd, I saw eyeballs. They weren't looking at their phones. Like what an accomplishment! They were looking at us.
It really was a cool feeling, especially if you really truly know that you have something really to share, and that people want to hear it. It is a very good feeling.
So let's step back just a quick smidge, because for people that are listening, designers and anybody in business, you do a whole lot of stuff under the umbrella of Phil Pallen now. Mm-hmm. So we got together and you did a brand audit for us where you really took a deep dive with your team into our website, our social media, everything about us, and kind of deconstructed it and helped us to gain some focus and to give us some new direction. So, but you work with your clients on their brand identity, which I think is so difficult for people to do on their own. Website design, their overall brand strategy. I mean, you really, and then when you're speaking around the world, are you speaking about these things, or do you have, is there other topics that people find more interesting that they want to hear from you about?
Well, so that's an interesting point. You know, I had, what is it, November? I have to like look at my watch to know what day, what time, what year. I head to Cairo in a few weeks. And there I'm speaking about relevancy. How can brands and startups stay relevant? You know, and then I talk about how to be memorable and all these kinds of other things, these qualities that it takes nowadays to stand out, not just now, but in the future. For me, branding is kind of the through line. Social media becomes a part of how you promote your brand. I have the distinct privilege of working in so many different industries. And because of that, I've had to figure out a way to streamline all of this, to create a process so people understand, right? Mm-hmm. Otherwise, it's overwhelming. It doesn't help that people define branding in so many different ways, right? Jeff Bezos has my favorite definition, which is your brand is what others say about you when you're not in the room. You know, so it's cute when people think, well, I don't need a brand. I sell insurance for a living. Well, cutie, you have a brand, whether you like it or not, whether you acknowledge it or not. People are typing your name into Google, and the control that you have over that first impression, I would argue, is your brand, right? Your brand is the first impression that you give others, right? And ideally, it's a good one. So I'm really focused on thinking, what makes you so great in real life, right? When I have the privilege of being face-to-face with you, what do I learn from you? What do you say? Content. And how do you say it in a way that I'm going to remember it's from you and not someone else? That's personality. So the combination of content and personality work together to create your brand in person and online. When those two experiences are consistent, that's when you're onto something. That's when you can start to recreate the in-person experience online and think of it in 3 steps. Position your brand, build something to show for it, so all your visuals, photography, brand identity, website, and then finally figure out a way to promote it, to stay on people's radar. And social media is something I talk a lot about because it falls under that third category.
Well, and one thing I love about you is that we've worked together on several projects, but your emails that you send out to your clan that are free are so informative. Joanne just said to me the other day, she was like, you know, I'm thinking because our clientele is kind of an older group and we really prefer to have working couples and professionals that we should be really focused on LinkedIn instead of maybe so much on, say, Facebook. And then literally the next day you sent that email out about LinkedIn. LinkedIn is my favorite, social media avenue or whatever. And I was like, oh my God, I love him.
Yeah. And that's just it. Figuring out who your audience is and where they are and to put your message there.
It's hard.
Yeah.
I mean, I think
it's
that
very hard.
Everything you do is so valuable. I mean, everybody needs a Phil, like everybody needs a Russ, our producer. Everybody needs a Phil because this stuff is really hard. And I, we're really good at what we do, and we can't be really good at what you do too. So that's why it's just better to hire you.
Yeah.
But we feel a pressure to be really good at everything, don't we? When we're small businesses and we're pulled in 4,000 directions. What you said just now is so essential. You said we're really good at what we do. And so what's really pretty insightful in terms of why you guys, it's one of the many reasons you guys have had the success that you have, is you stay coachable, first of all. I mean, I've told many people over the years to start a podcast, and I can count on one hand the number of people that have actually gone and done it and stayed consistent. It's not easy. It's cute when people say, I'm going to start a podcast. I'm like, oh, really? And you're going to do it you're going to do 3 episodes, and then you're going to fall off the bandwagon. Please prove me wrong. Please prove me wrong.
And you're going to do it on your iPhone and think it'll work. Yeah.
Exactly. So there's a few things here. You said we're really good at what we do. You know when to ask for help. It actually, you asking for help from other experts makes you better at what you do. It is very easy for us to give other people advice. I mean, my whole job is giving other people advice. But when it comes to my own brand, I seek help from others. I don't design my own logo. I don't design my own branding. I work with my designer on it, the same designer that does our client projects. But I'm too close to it. So I love working with my clients. My clients are people that are successful in their industry, have reached a certain level of success primarily on their own, and they're ready for someone that's not as close to it, to hold up the mirror in their face and say, this is who you are, this is who you become. Now let's listen to where you want to go and reverse engineer the steps to get there. Small steps every single day. What's one thing you can do, to get to move forward in that direction? Branding is not just making things look pretty. Branding is a business tool that will help you manifest the goals that you set. I really believe it because I've seen it happen.
What would you say are the top 3 mistakes that people make when putting themselves out there into the world via their social media or their website or their physical person?
Oh my God, I have to choose 3. Okay, I've got 100. But let me choose
I know
3.
there's so many. Because
So
I'll bet that people listening would probably not be aware that they're even have that problem, or no, they're not, that they're doing it.
You're so in it yourself until you have somebody on the outside looking in.
Exactly. So I would say, number 1, people are too quick to jump to the final stage of branding, which is the promotion. And it's in a panic. I'm launching a book in a month and I need it to be a successful launch. Well, if you haven't built an audience, then I can guarantee you it's not going to be successful. So rather than reacting in a panic, we should be proactive with how we're growing an audience. Let me give you a very quick example. Rather than creating an Instagram today, for a business that you've been thinking about for a year, I would have preferred for you to create an Instagram handle a year ago and start to curate an audience around the people that you hope to buy from you, right? So let's say you're opening a coffee shop, then a year before, create an Instagram account that curates the best coffee in your town. And then by the time 1 year passes and you're finally ready to launch, you've got 10,000 followers rather than starting an Instagram handle from scratch, right? You can archive the old posts that you did of your competitors, etc., but you've got a captive audience that you've grown a little bit every day. So people are too quick to jump to that final stage, promote, and I liken it to real estate, interior design. It's like if you try to sell a house that doesn't have a roof, you're only going to get a fraction of the value that you actually deserve. So stage that house, freaking decorate it so it's beautiful so people notice it, want it, That's how I think of that. So that's number 1. People jump too quickly to the sale. Second one, photography.
Yes.
Not prioritized. People have terrible photography. Why do we put so much effort into our outfits day to day to show up to a party, a wedding, an event? People spend thousands of dollars on an outfit they're probably only going to wear once, yet their profile photo on LinkedIn is this like photo that's pixelated and it's like 10 years old. What?
Yes.
So invest in your online presence. I'd say even, by not having an updated photo that represents you now. I'm not asking you to be a supermodel. I don't care if you are a chef and you're hiding behind a business. I don't care. You still have to have. It's your digital responsibility to have great photography that represents you today because we're recreating
I like that, your
the
digital
in-person experience.
Responsibility. Yes.
Yeah, it's not
3?
a luxury. I mean, Joanne even said it. Like, I really believe branding is a necessity. It's not a luxury anymore because now the internet is here to stay and you're juggling 2 versions of yourself. My third one is simple. I'd say people try to spread themselves too thin. We feel the pressure of having to be active on every single social media platform, but then all of a sudden we're spending a disproportionate part of our day on social media when we should probably be spending more minutes doing what you do, what you're really good at, And so I would say focus in 2019 and beyond, 2020, focus on what makes you great, where your audience is. And I'd rather you have one social media platform, where you're a rock star, than 10 platforms active and you're just mediocre. So focus.
I seriously could listen to your advice for days.
Yeah. Well, but there's another very, very interesting and cool thing about you. And that is your travels and your whole kind of home swap thing you did for a little while. Please just tell our listeners some of this, because I think it's fascinating.
Sure. I mean, you can probably hear the honking of you can hear the honking of the horns in the background. It's like, I have to remind myself that it's really, really cool some days, because some days are a bit more challenging, but I love to travel. One of the things I love about my job is that I can do it remotely. So even right now, I've got my microphone set up, I've got my laptop, and I am literally steps away from the Pacific Ocean in Lima, Peru. In about 15 minutes, I head to Huacachina. I'm going to like an oasis in the desert that's 4 or 5 hours away from Lima. I mean, I'm not too far from Machu Picchu. I'm here for the month. So I get around. I do my work remotely. I end the year in Egypt. I started the year in England. I've been to Poland. I spent a month in Brazil. I spent 4 months in Colombia learning Spanish this year. I was just back in London last week, and LA before that. I mean, so I move around. I don't have a lot of clothes, but all the clothes I do have are cute. But it's like, living out of a suitcase. That's my life, but I really love it.
But you have a killer home in Florida that you have on Airbnb, right? So that kind of...
You want to give it
that kind of fuels your, where you're living in other places.
You want to give a little plug for your...
Sure, I do.
How do they find your cute place?
Yes, I branded a house this year, philpallen.house. And so I used to live in LA. I moved everything over to Florida, no state tax, and made my business address this little house I bought in Florida, philpallen.house, and I put it on Airbnb. It's I've got one closet in the house that I lock where I have all of my things. And I go back there every so often, check in. I've only been there 3 times. So
well, first of all,
that's amazing.
You guys need to go to this philpallen.house, because the way that it is marketed,
it's perfection.
It's perfection. Like, if you have an Airbnb, if you're considering one, use his as an example, because it's incredible. It really is.
Well, Phil, we have we ran out of time in 3.2 seconds. But I hope that everybody got a taste of how gregarious and vibrant and smart you are. And I hope that any interior designer out there listening, but really any business person, any creative, would go to your website, Phil Pallen. Is it what is it now? .com?
.co. It's all of them work. .co, .com, all of them work.
Yeah. Because you've been a great mentor and guide to us and friend, and we're hoping that you join us in Guatemala in June, and maybe we'll see you in Morocco next year.
But can we have him as a guest again?
Yeah,
we need you back. This
can we do part 2?
I'd love to.
This wasn't enough.
All right, let's do part 2.
This wasn't enough.
All right, we ran out of time.
I'm always game.
Let's ixnay the funny quote and just do the serious one, because it's so good.
Okay. So here, this is, and I think you'll really like this, Phil. I don't know if you've heard it before. Okay. So Netflix did not kill Blockbuster. Ridiculous late fees did. Uber did not kill the taxi business. Limited access and fare control did. Apple did not kill the music industry. Being forced to buy full-length albums did. Amazon did not kill other retailers. Poor customer service and experience did. Airbnb isn't killing the hotel industry. Limited availability and pricing options are. Technology by itself is not the disruptor. Not being customer-centric is the biggest threat to any business. Is that good?
I love it.
Ta-da.
It's really good.
Amen. Preach.
Yep.
Yeah. So good. So good.
I love it.
Yep.
All right, before Russ kills us, we have to end. But let's just do part 2, because there's just so much more to talk about.
Yeah, there really is. This just wasn't enough.
Yeah, and God knows where you'll be the next time we talk. Peru today.
Exactly. Only God knows, because I certainly don't.
You don't. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. Phil, thanks for joining us. You've been a great, great guest, and we'll
It's
see
my
you guys.
pleasure. I'm so proud of the two of you. I'm so proud of you guys, and I'll be back. I look forward to it.
Thanks.
Okay. Thanks, Phil.
Mwah!
Join Joanne and Kelly weekly for a lively conversation about trends, travels to industry events, current design projects, the good, the bad, and the ugly, do's and don'ts, product recommendations, and more. Be sure to follow the fun on Facebook. They're on Instagram at Kandrak Cole, and of course, you've got to visit them online at kandrak-cole.com for more information.